Welcome back to another episode of Square State Sandlot. Kyle Gilmore here, and I obviously have Bill Montoya with me for another
Happy to be
wonderful
back.
episode.
It's been a little while.
Absolutely. Yeah, busy, but finally carved out some time to get back on here.
What do you want to talk about?
I guess let's dive into definitely Wyoming men's basketball. Um, we were super optimistic the last handful of times we've talked about him, and I still am. Obviously, we've had a little bit of a letdown over the last couple games, especially against the Rams. But
Brutal. Absolutely brutal.
Of all the games where I didn't expect that to happen, it showed up.
Yeah.
I should have known.
I mean, Colorado State was favored, but
well, that's true. But I just felt like we were.
It was in their territory, so it makes sense. But at the same time, you hate losing to the Rams because obviously they're the border war rivals. So
right, and everything else was going right. I mean, I thought we were going to go into a full head of steam, meeting up with them, and that would have been the cherry on top. But I mean, ship's not sinking. It's better now than later.
For sure.
Hopefully bounce back, and I'm still really hopeful for a spot in March.
They just won today. They just ended the game probably 30, 45 minutes ago. Beat Nevada pretty well. I think they were favored by like 6 points, and I think they ended up beating them by like 20 almost. So it was a good game. Definitely a rebound. That game against Colorado State, Graham Ike and Hunter Maldonado, they had 12 points combined, and they're the top scorers for the team and towards the top in the conference. So pretty rough game from those two. Had some real bad shooting by the entire team. They only shot 34% from the field. So
yeah, I thought it was terrible. And then when I actually saw the number,
I
was like, yeah, it felt like 34%.
Yeah, no, it was not good. And that obviously doesn't play out well for them if they hope to take the regular season title for the Mountain West Conference because Boise has a game and a half lead in the conference standing. So it's going to be tough to overcome 2 games as well as they're playing. So it's looking like, we'll still have a chance at the conference championship there in Vegas, which I sorely want to go to, but probably won't be able to. So, but I know they're selling more tickets to Wyoming people than in any other team. So should be a lot of Pokes fans there at the tournament. Man. So
fingers crossed.
So I know NFL season obviously wrapped up. We had the Rams win the Super Bowl, and obviously before the game we both picked the Rams. We both said we were hopeful for them to win. You even picked the point spread, saying Rams by 3. So props to Kyle on that one. I said 4.
Yeah, but my score was off, but I was close.
It was pretty close. Pretty close. So yeah, it was a pretty exciting game. I think the first half and then the fourth quarter were great. Maybe not even the entire first half. There was quite the lull there towards the middle of the game where there was a lot of punting and not a lot of good football being played.
I was going to say that it's funny that you give me props because the whole first half of that game, I was like, God damn it, Bill's right. It's going to be a low-scoring game. And I really thought it was going to hold, and then little by little it started to break loose, and I was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, and it's been a lot of Eli Apple hate online.
Man, so I guess we can address the Eli Apple situation a little bit. I will go ahead and say that the media and social media and people in general can just be brutal.
Yeah.
Did he come up short in the possibly the biggest game of his life? Sure, I get that. Honestly, I had no problem with him. I mean, people get beat all the time.
Yeah. Jalen Ramsey got beat several times in that game. And he's
the one where he got his neck snapped.
Yeah.
Sorry. But my only issue with Eli Apple, and I know I showed you when he put up his post that all these people saying everything they're saying is giving me the fire, to show up and take it out on my opponents next season. And like I told you that day, my only issue with that is if being in the Super Bowl is not enough motivation for you to show up. I don't know what to say, but
yeah,
he definitely
apparently it takes half the internet bagging on him.
It's bad too.
It is. He's caught in quite a few strays there on a bunch of different websites, and I mean, we're what now 2 weeks out from the Super Bowl, and he's still getting bagged.
It's bad. So I guess we'll leave the Eli Apple alone outside of that.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say for the Super Bowl, I want to hear your best and worst.
Best is probably Cooper Kupp. I mean, in that fourth quarter, it almost seemed like at the end of the game they were like, okay, we're just going to take our best weapon, and if we screw up going to him, at least we went down swinging. And I don't know why they didn't go to Cooper Kupp more. I mean, I understand he was being doubled and tripled in some cases, but at the same time, I was
frustrated.
Jefferson wasn't getting open. And I don't even remember the other wide receiver's name. I mean, once OBJ went out, it was like, oh man, what are we doing? And obviously the Rams haven't been able to run the ball since middle of the season pretty much. So it was almost like you have to go to Cooper Kupp. So that was my best, is Cooper Kupp coming up big in that fourth quarter, him and Matt Stafford. And then probably the worst is Logan Wilson not getting a Super Bowl. But, like we said, there's plenty to be happy about for Tyler Hall and others on that team.
For sure. I would actually agree with you for my best for sure. But Cooper Kupp, it's not like he just got double teamed in the Super Bowl. They've done it to him all season long. And I really felt like they got away from that game plan. And I could not for the life of me. I think some of it had to do with the OBJ success early on and them wanting to establish a run game, which never happened.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would say the best Cooper Kupp, he came alive fourth quarter and really just, I mean, some of them catches that sparked that team and you could just see it was going to happen. As far as my worst, I actually have to go back to the Rams run game. I was really surprised. And actually I have a two-parter for the worst, but they had a huge letdown throughout the season. I mean, they started out so good. And then when the Akers came back, I was like, oh man, these guys are just going to kill it.
Well, they had all three of their running backs. Yeah. So I thought that was going to be huge getting, what's his name? Henderson, right?
Yeah. Darrell Henderson, Sony.
Yeah, I thought getting him back for the Super Bowl was going to be huge, but didn't really play into it much. So
no, I was blown away. But my other bad call, my other worst of the Super Bowl, I gotta say that might be one of the worst set of officiating I've seen in a Super Bowl. Both ways. I know we talked about the Logan Wilson call. Totally junk. That was beautiful coverage. Hand on the hip, play for the ball. 10 times out of 10, that's not interference. So I hated seeing Logan Wilson get pinged with it. And like I told you that day, I really think it was like we made a huge mistake earlier.
Yeah.
We have to give them a play, which it sucks at Logan Wilson's expense.
Well, and I mean, like I said, I've seen that called throughout the regular season where you got the hand on the hip and it looks like you're holding. So I can see it being called, but in that where they had basically swallowed their whistles for the entire game, that was pretty ticky-tack to call. And I 100% think it was just a makeup call because they absolutely blew that call on Jalen Ramsey where the guy hip checked him with one arm and ripped his face mask off with the other, and somehow they didn't see either thing.
I stopped that play and replayed that play so many times, and I still am just blown away how that could ever get past an officiating crew. I don't. But it's frustrating. That's all I got for the Super Bowl.
And that's the state of the NFL right now. And I think it probably leads from the fact that no one wants to officiate anymore because people, I feel like, are just bagging on officials in basically from, even being a parent of young kids right now. Sure. We go to these, like, my middle child is doing wrestling and people are bagging on these high school kids that are doing the officiating for the wrestling matches. And it's like, who cares? like at the end of the day, you're just here so your kids can have fun, have these experiences. It's not about, you know, you don't attack a high school kid for making a bad call. Like,
No,
he's not
definitely
a
two very different
professional.
things. That
So,
would be the only thing I would say, especially on the Super Bowl, is they need to figure out the language in the rule book that will allow penalties to get reviewed in some form or fashion. I don't know what the right answer is, but on this level, I mean, it's very different. There's options, and we need to.
and they had an expanded crew on the field plus the crew in the sky, and that seems like obviously that's probably overkill for a lot of regular season games, but plays like this that affect Super Bowls can't have that happen. So
I can tell you right now, had the Rams lost that game, that would have been an interesting conversation following Super Bowl Sunday. But
yeah, because everyone would have blamed it on the officials for sure. But were you satisfied with the state of the NFL for this season? I mean, obviously your team didn't go as far as you wanted them to go. Mine either. But
honestly, I would say, yeah, this is probably one of the first seasons in a long time I actually enjoyed the entire playoffs. So obviously having new teams, make it to the dance helps, but I just thought a lot of the teams that did what they did were, very deserving, and I get very tired. It's cool when you look at the stats of, the last so many Super Bowls have been these four quarterbacks, and I get all that. It's impressive, but at the same time, it's like, okay, I didn't want to see a Brady Rodgers, obviously that'd be a championship, but I didn't want to see Brady Rodgers in the Super Bowl again. I wanted to see some new faces. And for, something like that to happen for Matthew Stafford, obviously was huge. So I'm happy.
The Rams have been there a couple times, but haven't won it. So, I was pretty thrilled overall with the season. Obviously, the rise of Josh Allen and the Bills, that was exciting to see. Raiders becoming relevant again somewhat till the playoffs, obviously losing to the eventual AFC champion. So not too bad there, but I'm excited to see a lot of the changes that are going on, and this upcoming season is going to be huge for the Raiders to take a step in the positive direction or go back the other way. So, but I'm sure you saw Rodgers. He posted that cryptic tweet hinting at retirement, and then goes on the Pat McAfee show the next day and basically said right at the beginning, I just want to let you guys know, all of you or any of you that tuned in just to see an announcement, there's not going to be one today. So apparently he did some weird, I don't even know what you'd call it. Cleanse, I guess, is what he did. So basically for 12 days he was not in a good state, and then came out of that. And apparently gratitude was what he came up with from it. And so he posted that. The cryptic tweets with, or I guess it might have been on Instagram, I don't remember. But
I actually really like Rodgers. I like him as a player, and I think he's an interesting personality, to say the least. But I always assume the worst of him in these situations. I feel like he just loves messing with the world, and it just keeps happening, and everybody just gobbles it up. It's like Gullibles written on the ceiling, and he's just laughing.
I feel like he was just doing his buddy Pat McAfee a favor, getting those stream numbers up.
I just think he's maniacal, man. I really do.
Yeah.
I hope he's as clever as I think he is.
But it sounds like all signs are pointing to him returning to Green Bay. There's been some stuff in the media the last couple of days where Gutekunst basically said, we didn't guarantee that we would trade him. We never made that promise. So that probably ruffled some feathers in Rodgers' camp if there was an actual verbal agreement, and now he's pedaling back on that. But they are freeing up some cap space. Who knows for what? And I'm assuming it's to give Rodgers a new contract or re-sign Davante Adams. He basically said, we don't want to cap or tag Davante Adams. That's not typically how we do business. So I think if they can't reach an agreement, there is a possibility that they just let him walk in free agency, which seems absurd. But if he's rumored, or if he's going to get anything rumored to be close to what he's asking, he wants $30 million a year at the wide receiver position. So that's pretty unheard of. I mean, I think DeAndre Hopkins is next closest, and he's at like 27.5. So,
and this is where I run into my problem with Devontae Adams. He's amazing. He's a very good wide receiver. But when I start hearing that kind of money, like, for me personally, you have to be like Larry Fitzgerald at his peak. You have to be Calvin Johnson. And for me, he's just not there. I think it's an insane amount of money. Granted, I realize contracts will always continue to go up and it's comparing apples to oranges, but if you're not the guy, like, I can't even fathom wanting that kind of money.
Well, he's definitely the guy in Green Bay.
In Green Bay, but I'm talking the league.
I feel like someone's going to pay him that. I mean, and quite honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if it were the Raiders, because Carr's lobbying to get Devontae Bear back with him from their Fresno State days. So
it could happen.
I don't want to see him pay $30 million for a receiver, but we haven't, like, if you look back at all of Carr's receivers up to this point in his career, the best one he's ever had is Amari Cooper or Michael Crabtree. And Cooper's good. He's not a number one wide receiver. Crabtree, when he was with the Raiders, was a number one wide receiver.
I mean, Devontae Adams would be the best he's had, for sure.
Oh, for sure. And that's, I mean, really, we need a number one wide receiver, because right now we have essentially Hunter Renfrow, which is fantastic, but he's a slot receiver. And then we have Darren Waller. And that's about all that Carr has to throw to right now. Obviously, some of the guys are on expiring contracts and things like that. So we may bring back some of them, but on the roster currently, I believe it's just Hunter and Waller that are, big time players. So I think he'll be back, and I want to say Devontae will be back in Green Bay, but it also wouldn't surprise me if they slap the franchise tag on him and then work out a trade with someone so they get something back for him. So even though the GM says we don't want to tag him, it's a lot better option than letting him walk in free agency and getting nothing in return other than a compensatory pick. So what do you think about Brady? Do you think he's actually done, or do you think
I will never think he is done until he's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I got to say, the 49ers talk just makes way too much sense. Especially with them still being competitive. I mean, it's literally, it's basically doing another Tampa Bay Buccaneers situation. I'm not saying he's coming back, but if he did, like, I wouldn't even bat an eye at it. It's his childhood team. There's been speculation about it. Yeah. So I don't know. I could absolutely see him showing up in, Niners uniform.
I'm just trying to think how he forces his way out in Tampa Bay, because he's still under contract for one more season there, if I remember right. So I think the only way he could possibly do it is wait for them to make a trade for a quarterback or something, and then if he says, okay, I want to come back, well, then they can't fit both on the roster, so maybe they swing a trade then or something like that.
That was the only thing I could think of, that or him literally basically buying his way out.
Yeah, or just asking to be released. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe they pull the, he's earned it and they release him, but I just highly doubt it.
Yeah, I don't think you'd want to let him go to, especially someone else in your same conference, because then you're going to run up against him eventually. But do you think Garoppolo gets traded? I know they're working on it, but it sounds like they're not convinced Trey's ready to go. So
that's, I think, the hard part is I think they're ready to let Jimmy G go. But they're not ready to let Trey Lance start, which is a bad situation to be in. Because
if you could get Brady and you can have Trey Lance learn behind him, that would be just the best of both worlds there.
That's perfect, but I mean, you're banking on a lot right there. I don't know. They either hold on to Jimmy and, the fandom is pissed because they gave it another ride when they have Trey Lance warming the bench, or you move him and Trey Lance comes in and struggles. And then, it's lose-lose really. So they may make a splash in free agency one way or another, whether it's Brady or something else. I don't know. I very easily could see them trading for, I don't know. There's a lot of options out there this season. So,
well, and I think so. This is just a behind the scenes report, so take it for what you will. But there is some reported tension between Brady, Leftwich, and Bruce Arians, and the rumor was basically that Brady and Leftwich would put together a decent game plan, and then Arians would come in after the meetings and basically say, "We're not doing any of that. This is what we're going to do." Being a control freak, basically, is what the rumors allege. So Leftwich and Brady were basically feeling undermined from not having input into the game plan and all that. So I don't know if any of that's true, but if it is, obviously that could lead to him not wanting to be there anymore, and maybe that's why he decided to retire. But when asked, "Are you really retired?" he essentially said, "I wouldn't say never
typical Brady
possibly
response.
Coming back." So it was just very, very interesting situation that I think half the league is just like, yes, he's finally gone, and now that he's putting some irons in the fire there, they're like, oh no, he's done, right?
I will never believe it until I'm telling you, until he's enshrined. I ain't counting it.
Yeah.
If Weddle can come back, he can.
Well, and he obviously was still playing very well. I mean, made it almost to the NFC Championship game. So just one play from the defense, if they could have held on, they would have been going up against the Rams. So, do you see what's going on in Arizona with Kyler Murray? And Russell Wilson has since done the same thing too. Right. So they basically scrubbed their social media platforms of all references to the teams, essentially. So
it's crazy that this dynamic exists nowadays. This is just not something that mattered, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But everything's branding now. Everything's so social media derived that it's crazy that, like, regardless of the contract situation, this is what it comes down to as far as, basically the back and forth between the team and the player. It's just a very funny situation to me that this can even go on. But I don't know, man. I hate seeing these guys. It's a little different for Russell Wilson. He put in his time up there.
Yeah.
Kyler Murray is very young to be pulling this move. And
he's only on his third year. So he still has 2 years of team control, essentially, if they pick up that fifth-year option. So it's a little early for me to say that he should be based. And obviously, I guess we should say the reports are he's doing this because he's unhappy about his contract status. So even though he's under team control for 2 more years, he basically wants them to void those years and give him $50 to $55 million a year for right now, which I guess I understand because, like we've talked about before, the way that he plays the game, it's very probable that he's going to get injured if he keeps playing the way that he does. And that's what makes him valuable to the team. So it's almost a catch-22 there. If you want him in the MVP conversations, he has to do what he's able to do. But at the same time, you want to protect him from himself. So
I agree with you. But, had he come out this season and, say, won the Super Bowl, it's a completely different conversation. Something that I know we've talked about, I always feel he falls into is I do think the games are too big for him. And it has happened numerous times where he tries to do so much. Even Patrick Mahomes does it sometimes. And there's some similarities there that they're wild, antics. They do work a lot of the time and they lead to these exciting, crazy moments, which is great, for the fandom, for the league. But it also led to or contributed to Arizona having an early exit from the season. So had he put together this crazy run, that number wouldn't even bother me because he proved it.
Well, and like you said, salary caps keep going up every year, so it almost makes sense that salaries go up with them. So
it's true. It just has always bugged me that, like, and not all players, a lot of them, they put in their time and they work well with their teams, but a lot of these guys, like, don't sign your contract. Like, if you have no intention, it's just a weird thing, because, like, if you or I had a contract at a job, it's not like we can be like, well, no.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't sign it if you're not going to sign that rookie deal and play it out. Like, I understand 1 or 2 years before, maybe, but really the year before, I can sort of see it. But I mean, again, that's why they have that 5th-year option. So, like, I don't know. I just feel like he's too big for his britches, which is not a short joke. But I'm not a big Kyler Murray fan. I think he's very talented, but this is more of the same for me. This is exactly what I expect out of him.
See, and I'm torn because I like watching him on the football field, but
very exciting.
My A's also wasted a first-round pick on him and let him go back to college to play football for 1 year as a favor to him, just so he could get it out of his system, essentially.
I forgot about that.
And then he goes into the NFL draft, signs with the Cardinals, and now my A's are just like, could we get that pick back? Or
if I was him,
MLB says no. Ball. Yeah. So, and that's the frustrating thing. Like, they gave him $1 million or something like that to sign with them. So I don't know if he ever had to pay that back, or if he was just like, Casey,
well,
thanks
I think
for
that all of this kind of feeds into this, and it's kind of the way this is going with younger players and stuff. But I mean, he's basically being spoon-fed this whole process.
Yeah.
Now he's not getting what he wants, and to me, it's coming off as a temper tantrum, basically.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look good for the team. You're basically saying, it wasn't on me.
Yeah.
Well, and it was on him.
His camp, he won't talk, but his camp has said he feels like he's the scapegoat for the team during that stretch run where they went
behind the center, man.
I think they lost what, 5 of 7 towards the end of the season, and then they lost
home games, man.
And they got absolutely destroyed in the playoff game that they played in. So, it was bad. It was all bad there towards the end of the season, and obviously he's unhappy. The Russell Wilson one, like you said, I think there's more credence to that because he's put in his time there. He was unhappy last year when they had a winning record, so obviously he's going to be pretty unhappy when they have a losing record. Yeah. And feels like the direction of the team is going down rather than up. So obviously a player of his caliber doesn't want to stick around for a rebuild, and that's what it looks like it may be in Seattle. They could always turn it around with, a great draft, good free agency, but the way that it's been trending is not to his liking. So, so that doesn't bother me as much. But like you said, them scrubbing their social media is just, it almost seems childish, but
very petty.
To each their own. I mean, when you're under contract, there's not much that you can do, really, other than saying I'm unhappy and raising some stink. So, you want to hit Steelers first, or you want me to go into Raiders?
Go ahead.
Okay. So, I've got, of course, that just took over the stream there for a second. I've got a list that I want to read, just that Mo Moten, he writes for Sportsnaut, and he's on Twitter. He's a great follow for any Raiders fans that don't follow him. But he had a list of top 10 free agency targets for the Raiders for 2022. I'll just read it off real quick. J.C. Jackson from the Patriots. Allen Robinson from the Bears. Matthew from the Chiefs. Morgan Moses, right tackle from the Jets. Chardavius Ward, also from the Chiefs. Ted Karras from the Patriots. Interior lineman. Connor Williams from Dallas, offensive guard. DJ Chark, wide receiver from Jacksonville. Austin Johnson, defensive tackle from New York Giants. And then DJ Jones, defensive tackle from San Francisco. And then he also put honorable mention Devontae Adams in there as well. He thinks that's probably not super likely because the Raiders are going to sign Mad Max Crosby to a rather large extension. So, and then they're also going to have to sign Derek Carr most likely to an extension. So he doesn't feel like the money's there for Devontae if they want to extend those two guys. So I love the targets there. J.C. Jackson would be huge. I love Allen Robinson. I love the DJ Chark. Morgan Moses at right tackle would be a huge upgrade, and I don't feel like he'll be very expensive because he's already 30 years old. So that'll be a good one. And then, yeah, J.C. Jackson, I think just because we have such a need at cornerback, I don't think Casey Hayward's going to come back. So he was our number one cornerback. He'll be gone. And then our number two is, who knows, Trayvon Mullen, supposedly, but he can't stay healthy. So I'm feeling pretty good about this. I think they have enough money to throw around before they even restructure contracts and any of that stuff. They've got about $20 million in cap space. So that should be good enough to sign a couple targets in free agency. And then obviously, like I said, extend the guys that we have. But there were a couple rumored trades, and your team was involved in one of them. And as always, take it with a grain of salt. It's a rumor. So I don't know if these have been officially or if they're just being proposed by people writing for the teams or whatever. So the Steelers, Colts, and Commanders were all rumored to be making offers for Derek Carr. I think mostly it was picks, like a 1 and a 3. There was a 1 and a 2 in there, I think, from the Commanders, which I still want to just call the Washington football team. I think that's the dumbest name ever. But anyway, and their uniforms look like college uniforms, so
yes, they do.
It's fine. But obviously, if you, and I can't remember who was the 1 and the 2 and who was the 1 and the 3, and then I think one was 1 and a player. But let's say that the Steelers could get Derek Carr for a 1 and a 2 this year. Would you take that trade?
Not as a knock against him, but no.
Okay.
I just think there's easier options on the market. This is for our situation. And I'll get to more of it here in a minute, but I really do think we're going to end up with a veteran and a rookie.
Yeah.
So I just think that there are some options out there that are going to be, we have more things. Everybody wants to talk about quarterback, but we have more things to address than quarterback. So I would like to go the other route just because it's going to leave us a lot of wiggle room because we have, for me, 3 big holes. So for me, I would say no, and it's not a knock on Carr. I actually am a big fan of Derek Carr. I think he's better than he gets credit for. Is he elite talent? No, but he's a good quarterback. He's not going to lose you games.
Yeah. See, and I would also say no to a 1 and a 2 because, well, for one thing, you guys you're picking like 2 picks in front of us, so getting to move up 2 spots, it's not going to help us. We're not going to get a quarterback to replace him at that spot. But and then a 2, great as well, but you're not going to make up the impact that you're giving away by trading him away. So I would say unless they can get like Chase Young and a 1 from the Washington football team, Commanders, I really don't see it making a ton of sense there. And even then,
be a Raider.
Yeah, I think they're probably getting pretty close to an extension. And I don't know if it's going to be a shorter extension. That's what it sounds like he would like. And the team would also like to do a shorter extension so they can feel out, see how it's working, and then maybe move along to the next extension or move on from him. So I think for both sides, it makes the most sense because with his last contract, when he signed it, he was the highest paid quarterback in the league for a couple days. And then the next guy, they kept getting done. So at the time it looked like a terrible contract, but before long he was, before too long, he was like the 7th highest paid. So it made a lot of sense. And that's where we're at again in this cycle. If he signs this one for $40 million, well, the next guy's going to get 41, 42, 43, and so on and so forth. So that he doesn't want to do it again long term where he's at the bottom of that totem pole again. So
makes sense.
I think he wants to do the 2 years and see how it works, and then either get another extension or maybe go somewhere else. So of those other guys, we definitely need offensive line. We definitely need defensive line, because I think on our defensive line we have Ngakoue and Crosby that are under contract for this season, and that's it. So we probably need to re-sign a combination of Quentin Jefferson, his name's slipping me, Jonathan Hankins, and then the other guy we brought over from San Francisco last year that I've been pounding the table. I want back, but now I can't remember his name. But anyway, we need to bring some of those guys back because, like I said, we're going to lose them in free agency if we don't. So,
yep.
But Steelers stuff, what do you got going on with them?
I mean, it's more of the same. I've been a broken record on this, probably, for at least a season now. But I'll get to the quarterback stuff. Outside of the quarterback situation, obviously, with the exodus of Roethlisberger, I think we have three big holes in the team right now. Obviously, offensive line is the biggest one. Pretty cut and dry there. We just need to literally start over on the offensive line. I feel so bad for Najee Harris. If they ever get a line in front of him, he's going to be impressive. So that needs to be one. I don't care if it's free agency. I don't care if it's a draft. They need to bring in some maulers. I don't care if they can pass block. I want them to start putting people on the ground. Outside of that, cornerback's one. Joe Hayden, we'll see what happens there. He's getting older, and there's really no guarantee we're even going to sign him again. So waiting to see where that goes. And then our other corners have been, I would say, average as a group. So I would like to see us get some secondary help. And then when you think of Steelers defense, you think of linebackers, and they're missing that right now. Schobert has played pretty well. Spillane's filled in. But honestly, one of my least favorite players on the team is Devin Bush. He is just time and time again a letdown. They brought him in basically to make these big plays. I know we've talked about it before. For me, for an elite player, it's 3 or 4 plays a game that you literally change the game. And he's never been that guy. Whether it's a dropped pick, a missed tackle, or just not showing up. Finishing a game as a linebacker in our defense with 1 or 2 tackles is unacceptable.
Yeah.
So I would say cornerback, linebacker, and line needs addressed. Again, free agency, draft, I don't care. And then outside of that, it's quarterback position is the biggest thing. The big names that are out there for us are Carson Wentz, Jimmy G, Russell Wilson's kind of there. I really don't see that one happening. And then, honestly, one that I would not be so out of these guys, I think Carson Wentz is interesting. If you remember earlier, before the Colts picked him up, I was actually interested. I was kind of hoping we would make a play on him. I've always been a Carson Wentz fan. I think he got a raw deal when everything went south for him. I think there's a lot of talent there, and I think he could do well. With that being said, the other guy on this list that I really like is Gardner Minshew, the old mustache Minshew himself. I think he's got some untapped talent. We got a small window there, but when he has come in, he's played pretty well, and his throws have been – he can make all the throws. I'm not saying he's going to come in and play lights out, but I would be okay with him coming in and being our starting quarterback. So for me, I'm hoping we make a play at either Minshew or Wentz this offseason.
Well, rumor has it last training camp, he didn't take a poop the entire training camp because he said number 2's not an option. He wanted to start at the beginning of the season.
Absolutely. And I think that might outweigh how good he is. I absolutely just love him as a player. Like, he's just fun.
So
I don't know.
I still think I've been pounding the table for you guys to get Jimmy G. Not that I think he's a great quarterback, but I think with the talent that surrounds
Fits
that
the
team.
situation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he could definitely win on your team. Wentz may be an intriguing option because the Colts are rumored to be maybe just straight up releasing him if they can't find a trade partner. So
That's
if you
that's
guys,
the reason he's kind of exciting, because if
yeah,
they fully release him, then we're gonna get a pretty good deal.
yeah,
Obviously if he
for sure.
accepts it. But
And well, he's not going to get top money, so it might be a 1 or 2 year deal,
for
short
sure.
on the short end, just so he can prove it, and then obviously he's looking for an extension at that higher range. But you definitely want a guy on a prove it deal if you think the talent's there, because he's going to play out of his mind to get that next contract. So that would just line up perfectly for you guys if you don't have to give up
Absolutely.
draft capital and still get him. So that's definitely an intriguing option. As you said, I don't think Wilson's realistic. Someone's going to end up with him, but at the end of the day, he has a pretty big cap hit, and the Seahawks are going to want a huge return for him to give him up. So you're going to be paying on both ends with draft capital and have to extend him to a larger deal. So, and quite honestly, I know it's probably a lot of it's come down to the team not putting talent around him, but he hasn't played well in the last couple of seasons. So,
well, they're still chasing that team from years ago.
You still have to weigh that when you're considering it. But a huge move that I love that you guys did over the weekend, brought in Brian Flores as a senior defensive assistant.
Yes,
that is just huge.
I was very busy that day, so you actually broke that news to me.
Yeah.
Oh man, I was so pumped because every interview I've ever seen him in, anytime I've ever seen him handle his time with the Dolphins, he reminds me of Tomlin a lot.
Yeah.
And I really like that kind of coach. He's going to be hard-nosed. He's going to be no nonsense, but he's also going to be a player's coach. And I'm super excited for him to be there as a defensive assistant. I think it'll lead to more down the road.
Well, and I think that title is almost misleading too, because his voice is going to be one of the heaviest voices in that room. Obviously, he's not carrying the defensive coordinator tag, so he's not going to be calling the plays, but he's going to have a ton of input on game plans and who they keep on the defensive side of the football. So that is huge for you guys.
And there's no coach right now in the entire league that has a fire under them like he does. He wants to come out and perform. So I'm very, very excited to see him.
That plot thickened a little bit too with his lawsuit. Basically, he alleged that he gave up all the money from his contract because he was unwilling to sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement. So that voided the rest of his pay from the Dolphins. Typically, when a coach gets fired, they sign the NDA and then basically they walk away and get paid for the rest of that contract. But since he didn't sign it, that voided it. But it also lent some credence to the fact that with his lawsuit, they wanted to keep him quiet.
Oh, yeah.
And he didn't want to keep that quiet. So if he had signed that NDA and then spoke out, it would have, been against that NDA right there. So
and this hiring, I love this hiring for a multitude of reasons. Obviously, number one being my team. Like, I think it's going to be a wonderful impact. But I'm also thrilled that it's breaking that cycle. Because it very easily could have been every single team just wanted nothing to do with him because it was, hands off, wait to see what happens. I'm thrilled that we picked him up because I think we need some tweak. Honestly, the defense hasn't been the same since Dick LeBeau left. So I'm excited to have somebody come in that's going to shake things up. So very excited.
For sure. Like you said, I was jealous about that because when the lawsuit first came out, I was like, well, let's just sign him to defensive coordinator because he's clearly not going to get a head coaching job again. No. Probably not for at least a little while until this lawsuit goes away. But so that's a huge pickup for you guys. And then quickly, let's go on to MLB. There's still no new deal for the CBA. They've been finally deciding to put the irons on the fire there, but MLB and MLBPA have met for 5 days straight, 6 days straight, trying to iron out a new deal. the owners basically said if there's not a deal signed by Monday, that they're going to start losing games and players will not be paid for any missed games, even though there's quite the opportunity to play all the games just by doing some doubleheaders and things like that. But as always, owners are trying to scare the players into just signing a deal that's not favorable for them and basically setting that hard deadline. So again, it looks like the players are actually holding firm and saying, we need to see some major changes, or like we're not going to play because there's not going to be a new CBA. We're not going to just sign something that you throw in front of us because there's fear involved. So that's good to see, because the last CBA that they signed in was huge for the owners and pretty detrimental to the players in terms of the profit sharing. So it's good to see them sticking to their guns there, and hopefully we can get a deal where games will still be played. I would love to see 162 games, but at the same time, like you said, if MLB misses games, it's going to hit the owners a lot harder than it's going to hit the players, because it's going to damage the game. I mean, eventually that's going to hurt the players too, but where it's the owners that are basically causing this by locking out the players and then not talking to them for 6 weeks after they locked them out, they share the brunt of the blame here in this little tiff here. So hopeful for some good things to come of it, but
well, and I'm torn too, because I already have tickets for a game in June.
They'll be playing by then,
obviously. But in the back of your mind, it's like, we got to be playing by then. But yeah. I'm also very much in the players' corner, like, stand your ground, do what you got to do. So
well, and the worst part is today was supposed to be the first games of spring training, and they've already pushed it out to at least March 8th. So we're 1 week from any games even potentially being played, and that's if they get a deal done by Monday. So in the next 2 days, essentially. So it's getting to crunch time, and it doesn't sound like a ton of progress was made today. Yesterday they sounded a lot more optimistic, and then today I think MLB pulled back on a lot of their proposals. So not great, but we'll see what happens as this plays out. Hopefully we got some good news to share early next week, and we'll go from there. The only other thing I want to say about MLB is Tyler Skaggs. The death case was finally ruled on. Not a lot of people probably know about this because not a lot of people follow baseball, but basically he was an Angels pitcher, and they had an Angels staffer on the team that was Tyler Skaggs was having him buy drugs for him, and then him and Eric Kay would do the drugs, obviously. And so I guess he got a bad batch that was spiked with fentanyl or something. I don't know what they were doing, but somehow he overdosed. And so Eric Kay, because he was providing these drugs, even though Tyler Skaggs was buying them and having him go out and get them, he basically got sentenced to 20 years minimum in prison. And now the widow of Tyler Skaggs and his parents are filing a lawsuit against the Angels and MLB. And I think the saddest thing about this is, obviously, there's basically two losses of life here. Tyler Skaggs and then Eric Kay, the staffer that was helping him get these, is basically going to be in prison for a good chunk of his remaining life. So it's just sad how this has affected both families. And, obviously they were doing things that they weren't supposed to do. But this also really highlights the culture of drug use in MLB. And sure, they test for performance enhancing drugs, but they really don't test that deeply for illegal drugs and things like that. So I feel like that's something that'll probably be highlighted in this upcoming CBA, is testing for prohibited, illegal drugs, all that. So I guess that's one possible light at the end of the tunnel, but it's just devastating because, like I said, you basically lost two lives in this one situation. So,
well, and now that the lawsuit's there for the team and the league, depending on how far that goes, if anyone was obviously had knowledge of it going on or anything like that, it becomes a very, very big case at that point. It already is huge, but that'll be interesting.
All right. And then I think that's all we have for today. So hope you guys enjoyed. If there's anything you'd like to hear us talk about, as always, just get us in a message, get us a question. We'd love to touch on any topics that you guys would like to hear us talk about. And Kyle, enjoyed having you on. We'll probably
Always
get
a
another one
pleasure.
tomorrow with John, but hopefully you guys don't. I mean, we've been away for a little bit, so it'll be nice to get back in the swing of things. So,
For sure.
all right, we'll end it here, and hope you guys have a good rest of your evening.